Hey, chickadees. Today we're going to talk about relationships that go the distance. So come on in and join us. All right, chickadees. So today we're continuing our theme of relationships. We're going to be in this theme all week long. And we're exploring this topic of relationships through the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron-Reed, my future member of my BFF posse in 2026. So, hi, Colette. So we started our journey a few days ago with card number 52. And this card was mending. And what we looked at on this first day of this exploration, this more deep dive in relationships, was looking at how we make amends in the current relationships that we have that maybe have some kind of holes in the fences, so to speak. So we looked at that, and we also talked about forgiving and releasing that that kind of any negative emotion that might be there with that still lingers on, or maybe it's fresh and it can be very painful when it's fresh. And we talked about either leaning in without attachment, right? Which is a person who kind of wants to explore what the challenges are and what the issue might be to work it out, or at least in an attempt to work it out. And then those of us who have a tendency to kind of lean out a little bit more, or are maybe even borderline or full on avoiding the issue. So that all of those can happen. So, and the one thing that's really important when we have conflict and when we're mending fences and when conflict arises especially, is that we don't do a pass through. And that is where the emotion just gets passed through. We avoid dealing with it, even within ourselves. So whether we're the recipient or the person who maybe caused the harm, which always takes two to do that, we are looking at handling the emotions and mending those emotions initially. Now, and we also talked about what do you do when if you have one person that's leaning into that and another person that's kind of bolting from it potentially, or definitely attempting to avoid mending the fence, or maybe they hope that just time will heal all wounds, which is not true. So time does not heal all wounds. Time will, like, the wound might heal, but the scar runs deeper. So dealing with conflict when it comes up right away is really, really important, and forgiving is important. It's important first that we forgive ourselves. And going into 2026, I've mentioned this almost every day since that card came up, we have to forgive ourselves. We also have to forgive others, but we must forgive ourselves and get our energy clean so that we can do the work that's coming our way in 2026. So, and be prepared for what's coming in 2026. So that was the first card that we were exploring this week. And then on day 2, we looked at card 32. This was the card Here and Now. And it's really about being present with that other person and really engaging in that relationship with that presence. And we're not talking about just, lip service, or I'm listening to you, but I'm thinking this whole long train of thought that's going in my head about, I don't know, what I'm going to have for lunch, whatever the case may be. More importantly, how I'm going to respond, because that means I'm not listening to you. I'm formulating my response, which is a defense mechanism. So we're looking at how we can be fully present with that other person, how we can truly listen, not just listen with our ears, but listen with our whole body, understand what is being communicated to us, and then if we don't, get clarity on it so that we do. So we talked about all of that. We also talked about how we might do an exercise about listening, and really try to identify how many times we're not fully present. So times we're either thinking about something else or doing something else, which happens a lot on virtual meetings. And then we also talked about spirit guides and how to understand just the tip of the iceberg of the depth of love that our spirit guides have for us, and understanding that we love ourselves in a direct mirror of how other people love us. So if you want to be a good partner, which we talked about last week and the week before, I think, you need to be a good partner to yourself. So show yourself the kind of love that you want to see given to you from a partner or friends. So that was what we talked about on day 2. Then day 3, we went to exchanging gifts. This was card number 27. And this was yesterday, and we talked about the law of giving and receiving and reciprocity in relationships and how important it is that we understand that law of reciprocity. We talked about relationships being an exchange of energy, and it's our life force energy. So anytime we're in a relationship with somebody, doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, but anytime we are in that relationship, we are giving and taking life force energy from giving it to that other person and getting it from that other person. And that is a sacred act. And that sacred act should have reverence from you. So if you've got friendships in your life, and we all have different tiers of friendships, we'll just say, and we have partners, romantic partners, and then we have different tiers of friendships. And I would say that if I call it my inner circle of friends, but if your inner circle, that core group of friends that are really kind of your ride or die friends, if those are not completely reciprocal relationships, you probably want to take a look at what you're doing with those. And it starts with looking at yourself, because again, in order to have good partnerships, we have to become a good partner. So we start there and we work from there. So we also talked about really being able to give and receive love. And that is fundamental to being able to have a fulfilling relationship. And it requires that we make ourselves vulnerable to that other person. And this can really try to trigger our nervous systems a little bit. So, and then I also kind of told you my personal rule of reciprocity is to always try to give at least a little bit more than I'm getting, but I am never going to be a doormat. So that leads us to today's conversation on Go the Distance. So this is card 47. This is an 11. And we've been looking at numerology all week. So the general numerological meaning of this is illumination and intuition and vision. This is a master number. It is the first of the master numbers. And we also are talking about the positive and the shadow side aspects of this particular numerology item. So number 11 on the positive side is inspired. So this is kind of what it looks like. Characteristics of being inspired, being intuitive and spiritually aware, and also being a visionary. That's when you're on the positive side of the number 11. If you're hanging out on the negative side, however, this can kind of come about as behavior that looks like nervous tension is existing inside of you. Self-doubt may be bubbling up. You could feel overwhelmed or even need to escape just to calm your nervous system. And those are things that can be very problematic in relationships. And generally speaking, the shadow side of these numbers all week can be things that are problematic in relationships when they present themselves. It's not if they present themselves, it's when. And so knowing that it's being presented and how to deal with it is really one of the keys to being successful in relationships. So what does go the distance mean? It means just what you think it would. Endurance, strength, being in it for the long haul, and understanding the long haul is necessary. So generally, if we think about the stock market, the folks that are generally more successful in the stock market are those that put investments in and leave them for a long term, right? So they don't pay attention to the day-to-day fluctuations in the market. They let all those waves that are on the top of the ocean do what they're going to do. They're playing the middle and bottom part of the ocean, where it's very stable, very calm. and it understands that there's turmoil that can come up from time to time on the surface. This is the same thing with going the distance. And honestly, it's the same thing in our relationships. There's going to be turbulence on a day-to-day basis that comes up every now and then. And some of it can get pretty rocky. And some of it can feel like a tsunami, if we're using the ocean metaphor. But the truth is that if you have commitment and dedication in that relationship, that stuff that's happening on the surface is just surface stuff. And you begin to realize pretty quickly that, okay, if this is surface stuff, then what's underneath it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the thing that is helpful to understand is that when obstacles come up and you're in a long haul situation, these obstacles are really where joy and disappointment hit, and they have friction and they collide. And it's when they commingle that the obstacle comes up. And we're challenged to pay very little attention to when that happens. You might have a little scuffle here and there, but nothing significant, right? Because you understand this is an obstacle that is on the surface of the ocean. This is not what's happening in the middle or the deep ocean at all. And I'm playing the long game in the middle and deep end of the swimming pool, deep part of the ocean. So I'm not going to pay as much attention to the ripples that happen on the surface. The key is that we must always stay true to who we are. And if you're like me, I spent a lot of time in my marriage just trying to figure out who I was to begin with. But once I did, and I guess that's still a journey, actually, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I understood that being authentic was part of being true to who I am, and really looking at where do I have opportunity to be more authentic in my day-to-day life. That really became the key to everything. Really finding out who I am and how to be that person has been literally what has unlocked depth, even more depth and joy in my relationships. So know this, whatever is for you to have and is yours will never be withheld from you. We are the only ones that withhold ourselves back from what is ours. So if you're not getting what you think is yours, it's either on its way or you've just chosen to ignore it. So when we're looking at these relationships, if you're in a long-term relationship and that is a harmonious and joy-filled relationship, not 100%, but those that are in those relationships, that's great. And the rest of us are calling it in. So you are either one of two things. You're either in it or it's coming. Okay? And that relationship that's coming, that will stand the test of time, the thing that we get prepared to do is to understand that it's not always, that surface of that ocean isn't always, just like clear glass. There's going to be tumultuous times, and we start to learn that as we get a few gray hairs on our head usually. So, and one of the things that is really interesting is once you've been in a long-term friendship or a long-term relationship of any kind, and you're committed to that relationship and you're committed to stepping into that relationship, you begin to understand that when things get a little rough, like when that friction hits and stuff, the proverbial shit hits the fan, that when you work through that, you're actually deeper, your connection is deeper than it was when you went into that challenge. And that's what I found. And it is intriguing. So, because what happens in our brains is that as soon as there's a conflict, we're like, our nervous systems go absolutely apeshit on us. And we're like, oh God, I'm going to lose this person, or I'm going to lose that, or whatever. And, maybe we move into attachment or aversion altogether. But that's the initial reaction that can come up. And if we can train ourselves to understand that's only a reaction, we don't have to actually act on it. We can actually calm our nervous system down and come from a place of stability. We'll understand over time that when those things come up, they're actually opportunities for growth. And we'll begin to see, once we've gone through cycles and cycles and cycles of these, because it took me a lot of cycles just to figure out what the hell was happening, you begin to understand that when those things come up and you work through them, that you're actually happy that they're coming up. It's not that you want conflict. Nobody wants conflict in our life, right? But what we do want is happiness and love and joy. And over time, what we understand is that when these things come up and we work through them, we get on the other side, we actually have a stronger relationship with that other person. And it is more joyful and more loving and happier. And I think that's one of the things that is really beautiful about long-term relationships of any kind, is just being able to look back at how your relationship has evolved over time. And when I look at my inner circle long-term friendships and my marriage and other long-term relationships that I have in my life, it is an absolute just mind-boggling thought exercise to really watch how we've grown together. I have a dear friend of mine who we routinely, when we're talking, we'll routinely just be like, can you believe just like a few years ago we were here and now we're here and we're on parallel paths, but they look very different because we're here to serve different people. And so we have that conversation a lot, and it's just so thrilling to be able to take that journey with someone and watch their growth and have them witness your growth. And it's just really delightful. And you know what's fun? What I think is the most fun about this is that they see the warts, right? Like they see the warts, you see their warts, you know the shit that's gone down in their life, right? And how hard how they have clung. It's not really hard, but they have clung to their commitments, to who they are as a person, to their own authenticity. And they have stood the test of time with themselves and stepped into a much more authentic version of themselves. And you have done the same. And you get to laugh about the warts that come up and those little speed bumps and kind of the ugly parts of our life, and celebrate all the beauty and magic, because it eclipses all of the items in your life and all the stuff that's maybe not so pretty. And that's what I think is the most beautiful thing about a long-term relationship. So how do we do this, right? We have to have commitment to that other person. We just have to. It starts there. Commitment, dedication, being in harmony. But we have to also understand that harmony, like if we think we're going to be in harmony 100% of the time, we are in denial about the reality of being a human being, having these experiences that we're having. There will be challenges. If we're committed to working through those challenges with that person, what's on the other side is so much greater. So both parties have to agree to that. So oftentimes this will naturally occur. I think the smartest relationships probably start out with that conversation. That's something I've learned recently, and will be practicing as I go forward. Like, how do we handle this when things go wrong? So, are we both in it in the same way? Are we both aligned in what we want and need out of our good friendships, especially? So when you get to that inner circle friendship and those close relationships, those are the ones you want to really lock down and understand that you are aligned with that other person as far as how you enter into relationships and how you handle situations when they come up. So listen with your heart. Listen to that other person. Understand where they're coming from. Know if they are aligned with you and you are aligned with them. And I'm talking at a value level, at a core level with who you are. And if you do that and you enter into those long-term relationships, and then you're committed to working it out, and when the challenges come up, you're going to see the magic of those long-term relationships. And what I'd like you to do is put comments in here to tell me, just put magic, if you've been in these similar long-term friendship or any long-term relationship where you've seen some of these things that I'm talking about. And if you haven't, and you would like to, you may want to consider booking a clarity call with me. So, yeah, the link will be down in the description if you're led to do that. So, but yeah, that's what we're talking about today, is going the distance with these relationships. And I have some doozies, some really beautiful. That's what I mean by doozies this time. Sometimes I mean doozies is bad. This time doozies is beautiful. I have some really, truly beautiful long-term relationships in my life, and then I have others that I thought were long-term that we're just not aligned right now, and that's okay too. If you've got those in your life, bless those people on their way and let it be what it is. So, all right, chickadees, that's it for today. I love you. I hope you have a fabulous day today. And please hit subscribe and like. And we are trying to grow this channel, so tell everyone you know if you think this would resonate with them. So our goal is 100 subscribers by the end of the month. That's December 2025. So, all right, have a fabulous day. I'll see you here next time. Mwah.